Welcome back to another episode of The Goodall Show, where we learn how to grow, motivate you to grind, and encourage you to give. I am James Goodall, your host, and this week we had a busy week. We have a phone call with a guy named Randy who does $1.4 million in revenue. Started a while ago, and he mainly does HOA. So he reached out to me and said, hey, I know you do residential, but I'd like to come on the podcast and talk about HOAs, talk about a different side of the business. And 1.4 million, that's a goal that a lot of people have. Some people don't. Some people want to stay solo and do $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 a year, have a couple crews maybe, do $500,000, but then there's a whole nother level when you get over $1 million. And 1.4 million in revenue, I think anybody can learn from that. How does he do that? What's his processes? What's his system? So I'm excited to talk to him in a second here. But Monday we had a tournament, my JV tournament. So this one was supposed to be last Wednesday, but it got moved to Monday. And we just finished that. We ended up getting third place. We were up in the semifinals 24-17. We were up 7. About 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and then the wheels fell off. We got outscored 27-2, ended up losing by about 18, 19 points. So that was frustrating, but then we played the third place game, and I tried to get all the sophomores this is their last game on JV, to play a lot. In the whole fourth quarter, they played the most. And we were down 10 at one point. We ended up coming all the way back, and I'll throw the video up on YouTube so you can see it. But we was about 7 seconds left in the game. 7 seconds left. We were on the far side. We dribbled up. We got the ball knocked out of bounds with 1.7 seconds left. Then we drew up a play, alley-oop to the rim with about, 1.6 seconds left, 1.7. Tipped it in or caught it, alley-ooped it in, won the game. And that was fun. I'm glad I'm glad we won for the sophomores. But then also the kid, one guy fouled out in the semifinals. He had a bad game in that semifinal game. But then that third place game, he ended up having the most points he's had all year, 33 points. And he was on fire. I think we ended up with 47 points, maybe 48 points, and he had 33 of them. So we were excited that he was able to have a good game and redeem himself, because the semifinal game he fouled out. He didn't have a good game. I'm going to throw this photo up, and I put it up on the last video, but I wanted to talk about this for a second, is the power of, one thing bringing a lot of people together. So when I was in high school, we had a guy on my team. He grew up with me. He was a senior when I was a senior, and he was known for taking charges. And I talked about this last podcast where you sacrifice your body, you get run over. The guy's charging you, you stand there, he runs you over. He was known for this, and I think he had the most, up until then, I don't know about now, but up until then, he had the most charges by far. If the most was 20, he had 50 in one season. Every game he was taking a charge. Every game he was taking 2 charges. Well, he graduated high school. He went off to the Army, and he ended up driving by in Iraq, and a roadside bomb took his life. Well, now, from then on, which that was maybe 9 years ago now, from then on, every time someone takes a charge, right, so our teammate takes a charge, they stand up and then they salute. They salute the bench stands up, salutes, and then they go on from there. So it's something that means something. It's all sacrificing your body for the team. He sacrificed ultimately his life for our country. But the picture that I'm talking about, and I'll show you, it's a picture from the other side of the court looking up in the stands, and someone had just taken a charge. And if you look at this picture, in the background there is multitude of people who, some of them have never went to our school. Some kids that were 3rd grade, 4th grade, who were standing up and getting ready to salute. There are some 60-year-old men doing it. There's some girls that probably don't know what a charge is, but yet they are ready to salute. And it's crazy how one thing can bring, a whole school, a whole group of people together. And that picture just meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to, our school. We were able to, that tournament we were able to win. That was in the championship of the varsity tournament. It's just crazy to me, and I saw that picture, and I just wanted to share that, is what that can do, one thing can do to bring it together. And, we had a busy week. Today. This is Thursday, actually. I had to record this earlier, but today I'm going to a marriage retreat Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's just a busy time, and I hope you guys are getting ready for the spring. We just signed that contract completely, got it in writing. Now we got to get everything prepared to knock out these 70 properties, adding a week. It's not properties, but sections of the town a week. So we're busy. I'm sure you guys are busy. I'm praying it snows a couple more times throughout the year to get some money so we can buy a couple things. But the book of the week, 2 Second Lean by Paul A. Akers. Last week it was Total Money Makeover. It was Total Money Makeover, and by Dave Ramsey. I told you I read that book in my sophomore year of high school, sophomore year of college. Never looked back. Haven't borrowed money since. But 2 Second Lean I read 3 years ago, probably the first book. And shout out to Dave Wolf. Dave Wolf recommended this book, and it is my top 5 still. Top 5 business books or personal growth books that I recommend. I recommend Profits First, Pumpkin Plan, 2 Second Lean, The One Thing, and Total Money Makeover. Those 5. And 2 Second Lean has not been beaten out by any other book because it helped me so much. Like I told you, there was 4 desks in this office when I took over. Now there's 1. Right? Now there's so much less stuff that we need. And it's all about making yourself lean over there in the garage. It's a little messy right now because we have our mowers in there. We have our snow blowers in there. It's a little messy. But 95% of the time, you walk in and you know exactly where everything goes. You know exactly where the blowers go. There's a story in here, and you need to read this book, but there's a story in here where he walks into a company and one machine, to switch from that machine to another, it took them 45 minutes to do. If they're making one product, they had to switch the whole machine to get it to make another product. It took them 45 minutes. They got it down to like 3 minutes to switch. And they're like, we've tried so hard, we can't get it less than 45. And they come in and they get it down to 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And it's all about fixing what bugs you. If there's something in your business that bugs you, it's your responsibility or your goal to fix it. And that's what this book is all about. I highly recommend this. We are going to get to the call. Randy is doing $1.4 million in revenue, and all he does is HOAs. I'm excited to hear it. Stick around. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just grinding.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, man. Obviously, you are killing it. I think, I think you emailed me maybe a couple months ago, and just filtering through everybody, and then I saw you're doing 1.4 million. Is that correct?
Yeah. So last year we actually did 1.5 last year. So kind of to end the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a busy year.
Yep. And then I told the people that you mainly do HOAs, and we'll get to it. But it's just intriguing because there's so many people who are either at, solo at 100,000, or they maybe have one other crew besides them, and they're at 200,000, and then that's the goal for you. And I guess my first question is, was that always a goal to get to that amount, or did you start out solo, or how did it all take place where you got to 1.5 million now?
Yeah. So actually, I graduated high school, had never enjoyed school at all. But played basketball, loved basketball, actually had a couple of scholarships to some small Christian schools. Didn't go that route. So I graduated, started working at a machine shop, and was just like, this isn't for me. So in 2007, my buddy, who is a youth pastor at the time, was getting out of the lawn care business. And so I bought his properties from him. And, thinking like, hey, this is going to be awesome. So I quit my job at the time at Thomasville Buses. And that was a big mistake because, he had 5 contracts at the time. They all dropped me. He had about 30 properties. Those kind of stuck with me, but they weren't reoccurring business. So as soon as winter hit, it was horrible. I'm making no money. I've only been in the business, 1 year. I've been mowing yards with him for a while. So I kind of knew about the business, but not to create new business. Mm-hmm. And so 2007 to 2009 was rough. 2010 got another job, started doing the lawn care as part-time again, and building it up a little bit better. And so 2014 rolls around. I've got enough clients. I land my first 3 big contracts. And I said, hey, I'm going to jump into this 100%. And so in 2014, I went, all in and started doing lawn care again full time. And so from 2014 till I would say 2017, we doubled every year. So 2014 we were doing 200,000. 2015 we did 400,000. 2016 we did 850,000, and I had 7 guys working for me at the time.
Okay.
And what happened, I don't know how many contracts you have, but for us, like a lot of times your HOA communities going into the winter, that's kind of when they change companies. They get their bids.
Yeah.
So you start in January with a property. Well, here in North Carolina, the grass isn't growing in January, February.
Yeah.
And so, you get onto a property, you're like, it's not bad. You don't really know what it takes until spring gets here. So we jumped in 2016 to 2017 to 1.5 million.
So before that, you were what? That year before, you were what?
At 2016, we were at 850,000, and I only had 6 guys working for me at the time.
Really?
And that old saying, "Don't grow too fast."
Yeah.
It's 100% correct. I'm not saying there's not guys that are, that can do it. But I didn't listen. I kind of just took any business that I could take, and it almost broke our business, to be honest. So we went from 6 guys to 18 guys in 2017. And you talk about payroll, you talk about materials, gas, all of that stuff that you don't equate, during the growing season. If you're not ready to handle it, it will drain your accounts real quick. So 2017 was rough. We went from having $6,000 to $8,000 a week in labor to $18,000 a week in labor, which is a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
We never had a 17-acre property, and that year we had 2 17-acre properties that we picked up in the winter. So it was a massive jump. So 2017, like I said, I almost lost my business. I actually called Dave Ramsey and was on his show.
Really?
You know how he does? Yeah. You know how he does the show where he's like, what should I do? Because I'm in so much debt.
Absolutely.
And I was like, hey, Dave, I said, this is what's going on. I said, I'm at the point, should I just, go bankrupt the business and, just not do this? And he was like, well, what are you doing as far as, at the end of the year? I said, we did 1.5. He was like, man, you're making $1 million. He said, what I'm going to do. And he offers this business program for like $3,500. He was like, I'm going to do this for free.
Really?
And so, so after we got off the phone with him, these business guys that he has contacted me. And so for the next year, they worked with me, just rebuilding, restructuring our business. So like 2018, we dropped down to 1.2. And then in 2019, we dropped down to 1 million. And so, we were kind of going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But we were getting healthier. We were doing things better. And so they were a huge help. I would suggest it to any business out there that can afford it. Doing Dave Ramsey's business thing. I mean, it was awesome. They get you connected with a network of people that are in the business, that are like minds, that can help you with questions.
Yeah.
And that you can just kind of ask them anything.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome.
Man, okay, first of all, I probably watched, because around that time, 2017, I mean, I was listening to Dave Ramsey like every day. You know, like I probably listened to that conversation, or maybe on YouTube, like a highlight, because that's a crazy story. You're doing 1.5, but you're almost going bankrupt. That is nuts. So it sounds like you started in like 2006, right? Is that when you took over the first time? Like you bought that kind of?
Yes,
or,
2007. 2007 is when I was working in lawn care from 2004 to 2007, just helping, like weed eating, mowing, just helping my buddy out, but I wasn't ever like my business.
Gotcha. So 2007, you kind of take over, and then those HOAs that you bought, they kind of dropped you, right? And then for 7 years, it sounds like, right? So 2007 to 2014, you were doing it part-time. Is that what I got, or no?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah, it was strictly part-time. So like what you do, just residential, strictly residential, no commercial, anything.
Okay. And so 2014 comes along, and you're like, boom, I'm good. You got a couple contracts. and I'm going to go full time. I'm just like making a summary for the people. So 2014 till, until you talked to Dave in 2018, was it? Or 2007?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was the end of 2000. Well, it was right into 2018, 2019. It was kind of the end of the year going into 2019 that we kind of made that change with Dave.
Gotcha. And so here's my biggest question with all that is, when you were growing, right? Were you going out and like after it, or did this opportunities like come along and you're like, I'll just take it because they came along? How did that work? Because there's a point where, whether it's now or whether it's before, like I want to get to 1 million, or I want to get to 1.5, or were you it just came along and we just took it because it was there?
Man, at heart, I'm a builder. Like I can't sit idle. So anything that I do, like I have to do it better. And so, it wasn't that I was saying like, hey, in my mind, I'm going to get to $1 million. But, I said, I want to provide opportunities for other people. Cause I would see companies that are out there and guys that I would bring in. I mean, they were just paying them like trash money. They were just, $7, $8 an hour. And these guys worked there for 5 years, hard workers. And I was like, I want to provide a really good business where I can pay my workers really well and they can provide for their family. So they're not trying to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get by. So that was kind of my goal, in the beginning. And of course, your goals change, as you're going through business and life in general. And so, 2014 happens. I land 3 large contracts. I landed a commercial contract, roughly, 22 grand. I landed a large church. It was kind of the same, 15 to 18,000. And I landed a small community, that we were mowing a church beside. I landed them, and they, of course, were growing and building, but they were like $800 a month. So with that combined, it was like $4,800 a month, reoccurring revenue. So I was like, I'm going to go into this full time. At this point, it's just me and, 2 other guys. And so, that's what I did in 2014.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and with those 2 guys, when you took over those 3 contracts, did you have to hire guys like right away, or could you handle that kind of stuff with the guys you had?
Well, previously, I had told you, so like from 2007 to 2014, we were doing it part-time. So we had some younger guys that would come in from, church or just word of mouth, and they would help us. So like I was working a job where I was like 2 days on, 2 days off every other weekend. So I was able to, during the week, go in and mow, and those guys would just come in and help me. So, my operations manager right now, he has been with me since he's 18. Gotcha. And so it was awesome to kind of groom him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was one of those first guys. And I remember having a conversation with him as we were growing. He was conflicted because he wanted to work at Lowe's because he's been in produce, Lowe's food, and he loved it. He had been in produce for so long, and they offered him a job, and he came to me and he said, look, I'm not trying to, put you in a bad position. He said, but, this is my number to stay. And at the time, he was wanting $600 a week. And for salary. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of money, for me to do. But it was one of the best choices I ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. So but my biggest thing that I'm interested in is, what did the Dave Ramsey team do, right? Like, was it because you were at 1.5 and over the next couple of years you dropped down to 1 million, which on another scale, that's kind of what we did, right? I took over 3 years ago. We were doing 600,000. We dropped it down to 500,000, then 400,000, and just to build it stronger. But I'm just really interested in what's a couple things that they taught you or showed you to do where now you are strong.
So a couple of things. One, when 2017 happened, and I've listened to all your podcasts, your TikToks and everything, and you're very adamant about no debt. And I agree with you 100%. I will say that there are times for us that we do have some debt. And of course, Dave Ramsey preaches no debt. But in 2017, it got to a point where I had no option. It was like either you don't pay your guys or something. So, and this is one thing that I definitely want everyone to hear if you're in business, doing business. There's these things called MCAs. They are absolutely horrible. They're MCA loans. And so what they are, you don't really need credit to get these loans. Your traditional banks are real stingy as far as giving you a business loan, and they do that for a reason. They want to make sure you're healthy and they can, provide those funds. Well, these MCAs, they don't care. they'll give you money. Well, these are weekly or monthly paybacks. And so, in a combination of making sure I could take care of my guys, make sure that we could have materials and things like that, that's what I did. And so it just got me into a bind. And, that was the first thing his team did was say, stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to pay them anymore. And so now that sounds bad because, of course, these people are going to come after you. And so that's what I did. But we worked with them and Dave Ramsey to get that back. And then in that process, there's a couple of guys, Steve from Fairway Irrigation, that, that mentors me and was like, hey, these are the things that we do positively, to impact our business. So, I took some of his strategies combined with, hey, I'm not taking out any more debt to do this to move forward.
Gotcha.
And so that's a lot of what they were doing is just networking me to people that I could speak to. Because, a lot of times, like even when you listen to a podcast or you read articles and things like that, you don't really grasp without just asking the direct question that you want to know. And so for me, that's what it was, just getting to people that have been through my situation. Like Steve, for instance, in 2008 when the market crashed, he was the same way. Like his business almost went under. And, he took out loans and things like that to keep his business going. And that's where, I listened to one of your podcasts, like, where is it, beneficial? Should you just let the business go or should you try to continue? And, sometimes the guys, when they're early in the business, it may just not be beneficial because you're not making enough money. You're not generating enough money. You're not doing things right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so at that point, and yeah, that's true because, if you're not doing it right and you're not supporting, you can't even support your family. Like, dude, you got to support your family. But so at 1.5 million, did you have like $500,000 in debt? Did you have, was it 100,000 or what was that amount where, man, and how long did it take you I guess, are you debt free? But then also, how long did it take you to get to where, man, I actually feel like I don't have to go bankrupt anymore? Because you started, that when you had that conversation with Dave, you said, hey, should I go bankrupt? How long did it get? Was it a year? Was it a year and a half where you felt, man, we are solid. We have built a great foundation now. How long was that? And then how much debt did you have?
Yeah, so we had roughly $350,000 in debt.
Okay.
And so, and that's not just like straight. When you think of debt, that's not just like, credit card debt. That was like, Site One. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a pretty national company. Mm-hmm. We were doing communities for this builder where, we're doing 4 or 5 houses a month, sod, mulch, plants, everything. And so, this account builds up. You got $100,000 credit line. And I mean, bam, you got $80,000. Well, the previous month is no big deal because you're getting a check for $45,000. Mm-hmm. You're paying your bills. But then all of a sudden that community's finished and the builder doesn't have anything left for you to do. Yeah. So, one thing that we've done, I guess to answer cover your question. So yes, we had $350,000 in debt and we do still have some of that debt that we're paying back. Mm-hmm. But it's not a problem. And yeah. So, we paid Site One, all of them, that type of thing. But, our biggest challenge was figuring out, okay, I don't want to go into debt for plant material. I don't want to go into debt. Like, I don't want credit lines. So one thing that I did personally was I cut all of my credit lines. Okay. So like with Site One, with Green Resources, with Gossett's Landscape Nursery, I cut them. I was like, I'm going to pay, even though I don't get paid for the builder for 30 days, I said, I'm not going to have that chance that I can't pay it back. You know what I mean? Like I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do this again. So that was one thing that we did. Yeah. Everything that we do now, we pay for it up front. Ice melt. I just bought 18 pallets a couple weeks ago. I paid for it out of the business account with our money. I'm not going to get paid for that for 60 days. But hey, at the end of the day, it's not money that I'm worried about because we've already paid for it.
Absolutely. And I do think that is foreign, right? To me,
it is. You're
speaking my language. Like I don't do anything, without, and like I don't do anything without cash or, without my debit card out of our account. But I do think that's foreign, like some people look at that like, why would you do that? But I think you've learned, man, like, dude, I was at 1.5 and now, I was going bankrupt. So
yep.
Here's my question. Over the last, I guess you said that was 2018, right? 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Okay.
Yep.
Till now, what is the biggest thing or a couple biggest things that you did differently where now, man, you are at 1.5 and you could do maybe, I don't know, maybe you could do 2 million and not really have to change much because you have the systems and processes in place.
Yep, and you're right. That's my goal for 2022 is 2 million.
Nice.
We are so. Our biggest thing was just getting the reoccurring business. Like you said, for you do residential strictly. I moved away from residential strictly HOAs. One thing that I've learned in this process is the amount of liability I have out on the road. So, for your guys that are growing, and you've probably seen this, when you go 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, like we run 5 trucks a day. I've got a full-time landscaping crew. I've got, 2 large maintenance crews, 2 small maintenance crews. You've got a lot of liability on the road.
Yeah.
You've got, you don't think about your guys getting into car accidents or, breaking glasses on cars. Well, for me, putting them at one central location was ideal. We're driving to a job site. So for instance, we have 2 properties that are 17-acre properties. They take us full days. But my guys are in one area. They're not moving. My labor is there. I know how long it takes. And so for us, that's the way I built it. We actually dropped 60 residential yards and entranceways this past winter. Mm-hmm. We just got rid of them. So now I have 23 communities, but those 23 communities bring in $84,000 a month guaranteed, no matter if I'm on that site or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that $84,000 is huge. I mean, that pays my salary. It pays my guys' salaries. It pays for all my materials, my gas. I don't worry about the extra work, like what landscaping's coming up because my communities provide all of it. And, something that's probably going to blow your mind, and I think I've talked to you in your TikTok lives. I don't go door to door. I don't do anything. My communities literally keep me busy enough. Mm-hmm. Just in January alone, and this was mind blowing for us. We did the highest month in revenue that we've done in the entire business, which was $224,000 in the month of January. It's
you're not mowing, right? And you're not even mowing, right?
I'm not mowing. We did $72,000 in ice melt. We had we do banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America's.
Okay.
And they're like a hospital. You got to be out there 24 hours spreading ice melt. So, 74,000 was ice melt, but the rest of that was strictly just my properties.
Is that 72,000 is that how much it costs you to put the ice melt down, or is that it costs you $10,000 to buy the ice melt
labor? Yeah. So, this is
we don't have to get into it.
Everybody's going to want to get Bank of America's Wells Fargo. No, I don't mind. Totally labor, everything. And people, I know on your TikToks, they hound you and say, there's no way you made that kind of money. But I'm telling you, out of the $74,000, $18,000 is what it cost me in material and labor.
Yeah.
So,
and I think when I do a TikTok, man, I think this isn't even that crazy. I know there's people out there making more, I'm like, dude, this isn't even that much money. So dude, that's nuts. And so here, I've said it before is the last 3 years is I've gone to strictly to residential because the HOAs that we had were not good. They weren't good, and dealing with these presidents in those specific ones, it was not fun. But we've set ourselves up to where I think you've heard that we got the town that I live in, and that's commercial. But it's easy, and I'm seeing it, and you're right, dude. I'm seeing it where commercial can be way more profitable, but where we were 3 years ago, we had to get rid of the commercial and focus on the individual customer. So, man, dude, so you did the best month without mowing. And I think that's true, man, because mowing is good, but I think there's other stuff that is more profitable. Like you said, you didn't even mow and you made more in the last 12 months in that month. That is nuts.
So one thing that we do, we groom our communities. So, and what I mean by grooming them is we set them up to do their mulch in January, February, and March, because that's the dead winter for us. But what, a lot of your communities want to do in the beginning is they want to do it in April, May, and June. And that's not when we want to do it because that's our busiest time of the year. So what we've done is every year we tell them like, hey, you're going to get $5 off per yard. So we charge here $60 a yard, but in the winter months, I'll do it for 55. I mean, I'm only paying $18 a yard for the dyed brown.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, for us and our profit, it's not a big deal. But that's what we do. That's what we've done. We've just groomed them to do things our way. And, you know, even per door price, that's how we've been able to kind of get to a large profit. Is I'm a one-stop shop. Now, granted, I only focus on lawn care and maintenance. Like, that's my niche. But I have, you know, Southern Turf Management who does all of our chemical spraying. I have, you know, a personal grader that will do our grading work. I have an irrigation guy that can do our irrigation work. But, you know, when I sell to a community, I say, hey, I'm all about your maintenance. I know how to do that and do it well. But if you need a service or you need to go to somebody, talk to me and we'll make sure we handle it for you.
That's nice because the problem with some of these HOAs is they have to, you know, contact you. They have to contact someone else to do, irrigation, fertilizing, and they just want to talk to one person. And that's really valuable. And then the other thing you said was too is you're not, it sounds like, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're not catering to them. Right?
No.
You have a specific way you're doing it, and it's, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like, at least how we are, we have a specific way we do it, and if our business doesn't work for you, then you can like go find someone else, and that's fine, but we have to do it this way to be the most efficient. Is that correct?
Oh, most definitely. Now, I will tell you, early in the game, I wasn't that way. I wasn't that confident. You know, now I will drop a community that's $50,000-$60,000, and you say that's a lot of revenue, sure. But at the same time, like if we're getting onto your property and we're not making money, and you know, people are bothering my guys while on site or talking to them, and they're costing us money, I'll walk away because there's so many other opportunities that we turn down. Yeah. I mean, we're in a flooded industry. I mean, we have over 650 landscape companies in this area that we compete with, not to mention firefighters and the small truck guys that are out. No offense to them. Like, hey, you're doing what I did in 2007. More power to you. Yeah. But I just didn't want to compete with those guys anymore. So I've tried to separate myself and my company to be able to charge more. To say, hey, look, you know, you're not gonna have weeds in your turf. You're not gonna, you know, the edging's gonna be done perfectly. You know, you're not gonna have to worry about a lot of the small things that you may worry with these these large companies out of Raleigh or Charlotte in our area. So,
and that's where, you know, we learned. I mean, we've been in business for 22 years, and we finally figured out 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, where we cannot say yes to everything. Like you have to say no. And I know it's hard, right? When you're starting out, when you're just trying to make as much money as you can to say yes to everything. But there has to come a point, at least where when you grow, where you say, I'm not going to do everything. I'm going to be specific on what I do. And it sounds like you figured that out, you know, around 2017, 2018, and look where the business is. So your goal this year, you said, was to get to 2 million. Is that just adding more contracts, or is maybe doing some more landscaping? How did that look?
Yeah, so the cool thing that it kind of fell in my lap, and I don't know if you guys have. So we have a Epcon builder who does like retirement homes in certain communities in different cities around me. And what happened is I got connected with this builder, and he basically builds 60 to 70 homes a year. We do the sod, the mulch, the plants, and then we turn around and maintain it. And so I'm charging him on the front end and the back end. Yeah. And so these communities have grown and became a whole part of like our business. But yeah, so we picked up a couple of large properties this year. You know, last year we did about 750,000 of reoccurring business of maintenance contracts. Okay. This year we're right at $1 million. So $1 million we're going to do regardless if I do anything else, which, you know, that's not going to be the case. But yeah, so we've just projected. We started with a second builder this year. We're actually doing foundation work and waterproofing. That's one thing that I would heavily suggest. You know, as you grow, you know, stick to what you know. But when you can branch out and you have guys that know some of these trades, there's a lot of money to be made in it. But you have to have the equipment. You have to have the knowledge. So you know, 6-7 years ago, I would have never done drainage work,
Yeah.
and it makes me a ton of money now. And so, people always have water issues,
Yeah,
always.
absolutely.
But we make a killing off of it because people don't want to see water near their house or, near their units, and communities are the same way. So, those are the kind of areas that you have to look out for.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I think there's some people who listen to this where they 1.5 million like freaks them out. Like they
Sure.
never want to do that. But how can you do 100,000 or 150,000 or 200,000 with like half as much work, like half as much time? Some of them are doing 200,000, but they're working 7 days a week, right, from sun up to sundown. But how can you do 200,000 with working half amount of hours? And that's what we and it sounds like you have tried to do, where we're making ourselves, we're working hard, but how do we do more money with like less effort? So what is a couple things that, besides like going to Dave Ramsey, and besides that, what is a couple things that have like completely helped you? Like, is it a podcast? Is it a book? Or, what is that?
I would say it's been all about what I've learned. I'm not saying that, I love Pastor Furtick from Elevation Church. I listen to him. I've been to Inside Elevation. I think it correlates a whole lot because he's grown his church from, 500 people when he started to he's over, 80 to 100,000 people now. And I know that's, that's a massive church, and it correlates for me just because there's a lot of things that he does right, in greeting people when they show up. Well, doing the same thing with our workers, like just, we certain job sites, I'll show up and like, we'll order food for them.
Mm-hmm.
Those are small things, but hey, it shows them that like, we care. We know that you're here. Because when you have 18 guys, I'm just telling you, you don't know everybody personally like you did when you had 5 or 6 riding in the truck with them.
Yep.
And so I have to try to make a point to try to be there, be in front of them, and let them know that like, hey, I still care for you. I'm still here for you. We want to provide for your family. But it's just been the learning process, to be honest. When you have 18 guys, for you, maybe, I don't know how many guys you have, but like when 4 guys are standing around for 10 minutes, it's not a big deal. But when you got 18 guys standing around for 10 minutes, well, now we've done wasted 2 hours of time.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we've implemented a lot of things. So like I have 4 salary guys. Those guys come in 30 minutes before everybody else. They load the trucks, the trailers. They have everything going. Last year we installed, and this has saved me a ton of money. We stopped having the guy stop at the gas station because I don't know for you, but they love to get out.
That literally just crossed my mind to ask you, well, how do you do? Well,
Yes.
literally just 30 seconds ago. And okay,
Yep.
so how'd you fix
Yep.
that? What was he going to say?
So one thing that we told our guys, bring your lunch. We're not stopping for lunch. You bring your lunch. You're eating on site. And
Okay.
then the other thing that we did last year, a local fuel company called Barracoy Fuels, we got 500-gallon tank of unethanol gas, and then a 250-gallon tank of diesel put on our site so the guys can fill up the trucks. They're not going to a gas station. Made a huge difference because, your guys want to stop. They want to get a snack. They want to use the bathroom. They want to do, all of those things. And so, it takes up a massive amount of time. So that's what we cut out. So, one thing that we've done too, as we've grown, is we have teams. We have a blue team, an orange team, a pink team, and a green team. And they all have their own cubbies. They all have their own equipment. They have their own backpack blowers numbered. That way it's assigned to everybody. Because I don't know if you ran into this, but none of my guys take accountability for anything they break or lose.
Yeah.
None.
Yep.
So, a $500 backpack blower that gets stolen, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, every crew has locks. Every crew has cables. Every crew, has a rake, a shovel, anything that's used on a daily, they're in there because I'm sure you found out you'll show up to the job site and you might have told Fred, like, hey, grab, the chainsaw. And he'll say, well, you didn't tell me to do that. Yeah, I told you to do that. Well, it's not on the truck. So one thing that we've done is we've implemented anything that can be used on a daily basis goes into that truck. And so we have a list that they check every morning. They look at it. They know. And the same thing on site. You think that it's just normal for the guys to know what to do as they show up after they've done 200 properties, but they're not thinking about it. They're thinking about, I'm working 7 to 5 today and I'm going home. So we've implemented checklists for our leads. we have what we've done to try to structure it is I have an operations manager, and then I have supervisors, and then I have leads that are on. So it's almost, everybody's trying to watch out for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
While
huge.
not
And
on site.
how did, I guess my one question is, how did the not stopping for food for lunch, how did that go over? Because I'm interested in that. Like, I'm interested in how that went over,
Oh,
Like,
it was tough in the beginning. It was
okay.
tough. They were mad. I mean, because when you're out in the 90-degree heat every single day, I mean, you love stopping somewhere, Arby's or
Yep.
Subway or wherever, to get into the cool air conditioner for a little bit. And so it was rough. I mean, the morale kind of dropped some, but I had to stick to it because of the amount of time that it was wasting. And I'm like, when you get to 18 guys and you're paying overtime, 10 minutes of overtime adds up quick. And then
Yep.
when you're paying an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, that's an extra, $4,500 a week. Well, that's one thing we switched to. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. As we grew, and after 2018 with Dave Ramsey, one of the suggestions were to move from paying my guys weekly to biweekly. That allowed my contracts to pay me to get money into the account so that we're not worrying about it. And now we just have a bottom line. Like, I keep 3 months of payroll in my account at all times, no matter what.
Dude, that's interesting because I actually, you know what? I just had a conversation with my brother about just asking him, what do you think about paying biweekly? Because now we do. We pay like you did. We pay weekly, and I think the guys like it. I enjoy getting paid weekly, but yeah, that's crazy how you brought that up. So that's what the guys from Dave recommended. Hey, I would recommend going biweekly. And how did that go over the first couple times?
Oh, it was rough. It was rough because, your guys are like, they want to get paid every week. And, for certain jobs I've ever worked, some pay weekly, some pay bi-weekly. But I just kind of let the guys that didn't really want to do it, walk. And so it was a rebuilding process for us. And, as guys came in during the hiring process, that was one thing we made, known is, hey, we're paying you bi-weekly. And if they ask, I'm an open book. I'm very transparent with my guys with what we're doing, why we're buying equipment, how much it costs. And I'm just like, we don't bring in enough money at the first of the month to continue to pay you week to week. Now we do now, but in order to kind of keep that 3 month supply in there, we have to do the biweekly because there's numerous times that an HOA will say, hey, I didn't get your invoice. Well, it's a $27,000 invoice. Well, that's a lot of money to have to hold on to for, 15, 20 days. So, that's what we explained to them. And, now I have no problems. I mean, everybody's good.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, the difference that I haven't seen with me is the reason why weekly has been worked perfectly fine for us is because we charge the customer, those current customers, we charge on a weekly basis. So like the debit or credit cards, we charge on a weekly basis. So like paying a weekly is fine. But if we start growing like this contract for the town, like they're going to pay us every month, they're not paying us weekly. So that's crazy how though I had just talked to my brother about biweekly, and you bring it up and say, hey, this is what they said to do. So, I mean, first of all, I mean, dude, there's not enough time to literally break down because I have a lot of questions, like so many questions that honestly we probably need to bring you back on and go a little bit more into detail of like, how did you first hire? I mean, 18 guys, hiring these guys, man, like how did that work? Keeping them engaged, and how do you keep them? There's so many questions, but here's the biggest one is, what's the biggest struggle that you're dealing with right now? What's a couple of them? Hey, and then to go to 2 million, what do you see the struggle is there?
Two things. One thing that I wanted to say, and I greatly, anytime I can help out, and I would love to come back on again so we can go in deeper, is, for me, making time for your family. That wasn't a priority early on. When you're growing, you're like, whatever it takes. And you pretty much just tell your spouse, like, hey, not to say that we do, but in a roundabout way, we say, hey, you're not important. And I think that sometimes gets the spouses get left by the wayside, or the children. And, one thing with Dave Ramsey and that we talked about is making sure that, hey, during 7 to 5, we get this done. One thing that I've had to try to like make myself do is turn my phone off. Like, because as a business owner,
at
you're
home?
always 24 hours wanting to talk on that phone. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even realize that you have it in front of your face, but your daughter's asking you a question like, Daddy, can we do this, or can I, watch this, or I've been paying attention to this, and you don't even realize that, hey, you just completely ignored her to look at your phone because, the HOA president said, hey, when are you getting the mulch down? That doesn't matter. That can wait till tomorrow, but your daughter sitting right in front of you is more important. So that's one thing that we've done. We've said, hey, we're working. My guys in the summertime work 7 to 5:30. Sometimes they get done quicker, but outside of that, we don't do it. They go home. And Saturdays, I never work Saturday or Sundays. The Saturdays, the only way is if we've had a ton of rain that week. If it's been Monday, Tuesday rain and we have to work, that's the only way. Outside of that, I want my guys at home with their families on Saturday and Sundays, because if not, they're going to get burned out.
Yep, absolutely. It's crazy because I'm going to a marriage retreat starting tonight, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest things, you're right, man, that I focused on like 3 years ago is not work Saturday, because dude, I at that time I had just gotten married, and I want to be able to focus on at home. And turn off the phone. That's another big thing that I did, man. I didn't turn it off, but I stopped. I never gave my phone number to clients, because I don't have big HOA presidents, but all these customers, my dad had all his numbers, and they were calling him at any time. And that's a struggle that I've really tried to focus on. So is that the only struggle you got, or what's the biggest struggle going to 2 million?
Yeah, no, I think that, one, equipment, you're going to consistently have equipment. We have about 23 machines. And most of them are stand-ons, sit-downs, walk-behinds, things like that. And we can get into that, what's better.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, equipment's constantly breaking. You're like, man, there's a truck down. There's so for us, just trying to be more efficient this year. And I think we will be, because we dropped residential. We're just strictly 23 communities. That's all I'm dealing with. Nice. And so for us, I think just, handling the stress. I mean, people don't think about how stressful $2 million is, but, I don't have a office manager. I invoice everything. I also do 90. Yeah, I do. I do 90% of the site visits. I speak, I'm in front of, all of the customers that we have, for the HOAs. And I know that sounds crazy. And I've started molding my operations manager to be in front of them. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm selling the business. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm the face of the business. And I'm not trying to sound cocky when I say that, but ultimately the reason they go with us is because of me and my company. Now, my guys, great. I couldn't do it without them, and they're great. They help us out. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that's selling it. You know what I mean? And so, when you get in front of them, you're saying, hey, this is why I'm better than the next company. This is what I can offer you. This is what I can do. But that's a stress to do $2 million. It's not easy. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of work. There's days that, you're like, how am I going to get this done?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I have one thing. First is, after I'll ask a question, then if you have a book that you recommend, I'll ask a question. But if you have a book that you recommend to the guys, because this week the book of the week is 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers. I don't know if you read it, but it really helped me just get my office organized, my garage organized when I first took over 3 years ago. But then lastly, I was listening to an interview with, I don't know if you know B&B Lawn Care. He's on YouTube, but he's a one guy, two guys, but he was interviewing a guy that was doing like 30 million in revenue, and the guy said on the interview, he said, we're doing 35 million or whatever, but I enjoyed it better when it was at like 15. And as soon as he said that, I thought, like, why don't you go back to 15? If you enjoyed your life better when it was at 15 million, why not? And I know with 15 million to 30 million, dude, there's a lot of jobs that you're dropping, all right? Or could you sell those? Is with all that stress you're talking about, is it worth it? That's my question.
Yes and no. I will say, yes, sure. When we had six guys, so much easier. You're not dealing with a ton. But I will say the things that it's allowed me to do as far as giving, as far as, being able to provide for the family in a great way, being able to save in a great way, be able to, say, hey, in, 5 or 10 years, I could possibly retire. I built this business enough where it's going to sell itself and, someone's going to offer me money for it, or they may not, or it might run itself. But, yes, I would say right now, and that's one thing that I've heard from a lot of guys is, at what point are you just making money, but you're not really making more money? And that's not what I want to do. Yeah. At $2 million, if I look back in 2022 and I say, at that 1.5, I was more profitable. Like last year, we were 28% profit.
Dang, dude, that's good, man.
Yeah, that's $460,000.
I think that's unheard of, dude.
Included into that. My salary's in that.
Okay.
So, you take that off a little bit, but I look at myself as, that's kind of the profit of the company. Yeah. But, if we do 28% off of, $2 million is $560,000. So, that's life-changing money. You know what I mean? Like that's life. That does a lot. So
that's like changing your family tree, like Dave always talks about, man.
Exactly, building that legacy of wealth, for your family. But one thing we did this year that we haven't never done in Carolina Green's existence is I gave my guys an 8% raise across the board. And you say 8%, but I mean 8% is a lot of money. I mean, when you have a $17 an hour guy, now he's up to $18.50, $1.50 an hour. That's a lot of money. And when you have 18 of them, it's a huge jump.
Yeah, so and if they're making $25,000, $30,000 a year, I mean that's an extra $3,000, so roughly, So yeah, that's amazing, dude.
Yep. So that's one thing we did, man. Like I said, from the beginning, I want to provide where my guys don't have to work two jobs and have to struggle to get by. Not to say that we have to have those $12 and $13 an hour guys, because those guys we need them because we can't pay everybody $20 an hour.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that we've just tried to do, this year.
That's huge, man. I'm glad because on the start of my podcast of every one, I says the last thing I say is encourage you to give, because I have found over the course of getting out of college over the last 10 years is the best thing the most enjoyment I get is giving money, and whether that's giving it to my guys, giving it to my church, giving it to my school, and when you said being able to, the opportunities you can to give, because Dave says, live like no one else, so then later you can live and give like no one else. Man, the opportunities, the people's lives you can change with 28% profit of over $2 million, that's life-changing money to your family and to people, your church or whatever, whatever you're a part of. Man, dude, honestly, like I said, I maybe halfway through the summer weekend, I've already got notes that I'm going to write down and be able to ask you more details.
Okay.
But I appreciate you coming on, man. It's huge because like we talked about, a lot of people that are listening, they're not even close to $1 million. A lot of them aren't even close to where I'm at. But just having someone look at and say the struggles that you're going through right now, I went through. It's not like it was just all roses and everything worked out to where I struggled, and then now I'm here and you can too, man. I really appreciate it. I guess the last thing is, how old are you? How many kids you got? I know you mentioned your kids and stuff. Well, what's the family like?
Yeah, so I'm 38. I started when I was 24. When they tell you in business it takes about 7 years to kind of get where you need to be, it's pretty close. There's a lot of things that you'll learn. But I have a blended family. So I've got 2 girls, 2 boys, and I got an awesome wife. And, it's enjoyable. There's 6, 8, 9, and 14. So we're busy.
Man, yeah, full household. I'm halfway there. I got two little ones, and they're just he's 2 and he's getting there. He's getting to where he's starting to talk. So, man, hey, look, I really appreciate you coming on, man. And
yes, sir.
And and did you have a book? You have a book at all, or a podcast?
I'm more into the podcast. So I'm heavy Pastor Stephen Furtick. I do
Pastor Stephen Furtick, you said?
Yep. Okay. Pastor Stephen Furtick, Elevation Church. Great guy, great church. They are awesome. A lot of a lot of things have came from him, just from his messages, and just, like I said, I used to go to Inside Elevation and just learn from him. But there's a podcast that I listen to, I wouldn't say, every day, but How I Built This. It's a really good podcast.
Gotcha.
And it's on Spotify as well.
Okay.
So
yeah, and if you could, I mean, dude, if you got any pictures of your crews, your picture, I mean, I'll see if I can find you on it. You said Carolina green
lawn care.
Green lawn care, so I can look up Instagram like screenshots and stuff and everything. But if you have pictures of screenshots of those podcasts too, I could put them up, because I know people were interested in last time when I posted some of where the guy was listening to podcasts. So yeah, if you just send me some of those pictures, I can throw them up while we're talking. But hey, I think this podcast is really, I mean, this conversation has really helped. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Anytime you got anything, man, you just reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to help. So.
Absolutely, Randy. I will. Yep. Have a good one,
yes,
man.
Sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye.
Oh, man. Dude. Yeah. That's not the goal for everybody. The goal is not to get to 1.5 or 2 million. I understand that. But there is a lot of people out there that just started who would love to have 18 people working for them, 5 crews, $1.5 million in revenue, and understanding that they got to that, he got to that point, and he had the same exact struggles as me and same exact struggles as you. And when you realize that, you can push through, right? You can, man, last year we just didn't make any money. It seems like it wasn't worth it. Well, he was at 1.5 million, and he called into Dave Ramsey and said, I'm going to go bankrupt. Right, like I think I'm considering bankruptcy, and it turned around. Did it turn around in the next month? No, but it turned around now. 5 years later, he's looking at, I have the strongest company that I think I could have, and I'm growing to 2 million. Great conversation, Randy from Carolina Green Lawn Care. So much to learn from. I'm going to write down stuff so we can get into more details of actually how we grew the company and stuff that came up, and eventually we'll have him back on, maybe even at the end of 2022, and say, hey, I hit 2 million, or I hit 2.1. So book of the week, 2 Second Lean. I appreciate you guys. I really do. You guys have downloaded the podcast. You've listened. You've shared it. So I appreciate that. And if you're on TikTok watching me on live, I appreciate you stay tuned, because I know you can't hear the audio. Have a good one.